Okay, it's 5 o'clock. Welcome to the Board of Health meeting for Monday, June 12th, 2023. The time is 5 p.m. All board members are present. We'll move into a quick review of the meeting format. This meeting will be conducted remotely over Zoom. Attendance by board members will be remote, and remote attendance shall count toward quorum. The meeting will be broadcast live and recorded on ECAT. To use Zoom, you will need to use the link on the agenda or download the Zoom application, create a user account, and use one of the call-in numbers listed on the agenda. You will need the webinar ID to join by phone only. While conducting meetings remotely, we will endeavor to keep meeting operations as close to our standard procedures as possible. However, use of this platform will necessitate some additional meeting protocols. 1, while the board members and applicants will be on video and audio, public participants will join the webinar as attendee, meaning they are muted and with no video feed from them. 2, during the public testimony portion of the meeting, members of the public can be recognized by using the raise hand function found under participants from Zoom, or make a request with the Q&A function. If you're joining only by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. If an applicant wishes to display materials, please make the request of the chair and the email materials to board staff for sharing on screen. When starting testimony, please state your name and address for the record. 3, there is a markup function in Zoom, which will allow you to call out specific areas of presentation materials. 4, as in any public meeting, indecent behavior will not be tolerated, and anyone who abuses use of the meeting platform will be terminated from the meeting. 5, business will be handled at the times indicated on the agenda. Business not concluded in the allotted time will be tabled to the end of the meeting to allow for timely logins and remote attendance. 6, board members are asked to announce themselves when making a motion and second, so that it will be clear to the audience and the minute takers who made motions. All votes will be by roll call. 7, when all business indicated on the agenda has been completed, the members will vote to adjourn the meeting, signaling the end of the meeting and the termination of the ECAT recording. All participants will be disconnected from the webinar at this time. And for the first item on our agenda, we have 95 Belmont Street, which is requesting a variance from 310 CMR 15.000, specifically associated with the design suitability of the existing system for a proposed commercial use.
Kristen, you muted.
Thank you. I'm going to promote the engineer and the owner to handle it.
Hey, can I call you back? Yeah, I'll call in a second. Tell her give me 10 minutes, okay? Okay, now this one. What was this for? This is the addition. Okay, so this one was a second addition, a new building.
Paula, if you are
oh, this is the original.
I'm trying to promote you to panelist. It requires that you accept that. There we go.
Hello.
So tonight the board has a request from the proponent for something that's a little bit out of the ordinary for us. Well, they're not that out of ordinary. They do come up periodically for us. They are purchasing a building in town and proposing moving an existing business in town from one location to another. The type of business, though, is not called out clearly in the design tables that are in Title V. Basically, I think, and correct me, Hall, if I'm not speaking correctly, it's kind of a spa type environment. Laser treatments, massage, and other treatments. Title V doesn't have anything like that in its table. So what we as a staff do when something like this comes up is we look for similar things, but we also like to bring it in front of the board in the interest of being transparent and in the interest of you approving this proposed use. So we did have a business in town not that long ago that had 4, the closest we can find is it had 4 tattoo rooms and a 1-bedroom apartment. It had a similarly sized septic system to the location that they're proposing. And they ended up with an 85 gallon per day flow when we monitored them and looked at them going forward, which is even less than the one bedroom should have. What they are proposing is taking an existing office space, converting the garage into additional usable space, and the net result will be 4 treatment rooms, 1 laser room, and 1 massage room. They currently, at the location that they're at, have 5 rooms. Unfortunately, we can't just look at those water meter readings because they're actually in a plaza, in a strip mall, and their water meter readings are combined with all of the other tenants. So I just have one question, and that is looking at the floor plan, I don't see laundry being done on site. Is that correct?
Very minimal.
Okay, because I don't see a washer and dryer plumbed in or even proposed in the floor plan.
In the break room.
In the break room? Okay. Okay. Again, we're looking to have you guys take a look at it.
Most of we use disposable.
Thank you, Hala. Given what we know historically about a similar business, given this being a similarly sized and will be sole use for this property and the septic system, the staff and I have talked about it, and we think that it would be advisable to allow them to move forward with this, and would ask that you place a couple of conditions on it. One would be that over the first 3 months that they are in, we get monthly updates on the water meter reading. If there is nothing completely out of what we're expecting, we would ask that at the 1-year mark of them occupying the new facility, that they conduct a routine Title V inspection and document that the system is functioning adequately. That will also give us a full year's worth of water meter readings. We don't expect that there's going to be a real gear up of this business because it's already an existing established business, and we assume that the clientele are just going to follow right over. And there might be a little growth, but not anything that we think is going to send them water use wise up into the stratosphere. So that's the staff's opinion. I don't know if any of the board members have any questions, or if Hala and her representatives want to add anything to that.
No, when we, in my dealings with, this is Nick Youssef, just representing 95 Belmont Street. In my dealings with Mark Taylor, we looked at the existing water reading and figured that the water usage wouldn't be that high. So it was his recommendation to me that just to allow a surveillance of the water early on, just to make sure we're not encroaching any of the existing guidelines.
And just to add on to that, where I started out telling you all that it was a use that's not in Title V, that if the system were to fail, one of the pathways that they would take would be to use those water meter readings to go to DC and ask for determination to use 2 times those water meter readings for a repair. So this 1-year trial and look at it will give us some pretty good data and a good idea of what's going on.
Makes sense.
So am I the only one hearing interference coming through?
Yeah.
Okay, Mark, I think it's coming from your screen.
All right, I'll mute. I'm wearing a headset.
Okay.
And I have a fan blowing on me because we don't have air conditioning. So let me mute, see if it goes away.
I'm hearing somebody talking in the background.
Yeah, like full conversations. Yeah.
Yes.
And it very well may be Mark is actually in the Board of Health office and, thinking that the microphone and the headphones might have, I guess we didn't realize they picked up the better quality than I thought they were, Mark. So does any of the board members have any questions? Do you want to go ahead and make a motion to allow the proposed use with the conditions that I've laid out?
The only question I would have is what if in that 3 months we find out that we were wrong, that there's a huge increase in water? What's the plan then?
So the septic system there is designed for 257 gallons per day. What we saw in the parallel case was 85 gallons per day. Monitoring it at the 3 months, if over those first 3 months, we saw something beyond the 257 that it's approved for, I think what we would do is come back to the table and make a plan. By giving them the 3 months, we'll know what trajectory they're on, and then looking at it at the 1 year, part of that Title V inspection gives us the water meter readings across the whole year, but is also your typical inspection that shows that the tank is functioning properly, that there's no overload to the soil absorption system, and it will give us the data for an efficient and effective repair if there were a problem.
Okay, great, thanks. I mean, it sounds very unlikely based on what you're saying for gallons.
Yeah, I mean, and we could even, if it were creeping up, we could step up with, or if it did become a problem, if there are other things we could put in place, like sending some of the laundry out, we could ask to make sure that the toilets and some of the fixtures are switched out to be low flow if they aren't already. But we're not anticipating a problem.
Okay, thank you.
And George can say, I'm usually super conservative on these. So for me to be like, yeah, let's go ahead.
Yeah, everything that everybody's talking about seems to make sense to me, so. And then, with the follow-up, I think, there's a good safety net there.
Okay, thank you. Do we need a motion?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Can I add with the conditions Kristen laid out?
Yes.
All those in favor? Zayas, yes.
Mills, yes.
Me and yes.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your time.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is Sawmill Village, requesting variance from private well regulation chapter 369-4F, minimum lateral distance requirements for geothermal wells.
Okay, so under our well regulations, we do cover geothermal wells and whatnot. And through the new well regulations, I learned a lot about geothermal wells, open loop and closed loop. And also learned that we're going to have to actually make another regulation that is specific to geothermal wells and not closed loop geothermal. It is different from private wells. Excuse me for stumbling over my words. What we have here is the project, which was the old foundry site across from Pequannock Street Ave, and the distance offsets for a potable well or an irrigation well would be very, very different than a geothermal closed loop well, which is what's being proposed. Open loop wells are a little different. What they do is these you can create heat and cooling like a heat pump, but what it uses is the groundwater. An open loop well will grab the water through an exchange unit and then discharge the water back into the ground. I have read some issues with open loop wells with groundwater contamination and things like that. So I very much like the idea that they are going with closed loop wells. What this is, the loop will come down into the ground. It'll heat or cool through the heat exchange. And I believe Rick Lincoln, correct me if I'm wrong, they use ethylene glycol as a exchange agent. And when it comes back up, and it stays in a cycle without getting into the groundwater and actually contaminating the groundwater with any, other aspects. So the offsets have been listed in a nice, I believe in your packet that had been given to you. So what I suggested to Mr. Lincoln, who's the manager of the project and the owner of the project as well, is to do all these at once instead of going through every single lot and having listed on the meeting. I will turn it over to him if you'd like to say anything for the board. I've reviewed everything and what they're suggesting. I don't have any issues with from what my knowledge of geothermal wells. What it is really our regulation doesn't really address these as they should. So in the future, you'll be seeing a regulation for geothermal wells and correct offsets, because you can have these right next to your foundation, like 4 feet away. It's not an issue. So if you'd like to speak on it, Rick, give you the floor.
Okay, just briefly, I think Rick Lincoln with Sawmill Village LLC. I have done a lot of these geothermal wells before. We even had a little consulting division that did it a lot for private clients. And I've done a lot of open loop, a lot of closed loop, and even some horizontal wells. So closed loops are great. You know, the well bore is packed with like a bentonite slurry, and the closed loop tube, if you will, is designed. I mean, you in the narratives everywhere you see like maybe 50 years, but I've been told they should last for almost ever. And then we run a trench from the well bore to the house. I've been trying to hustle to get in front of you folks, because in a tighter development like this, we kind of like to drill first. With 8-inch, well, we're doing 10-inch foundation walls here. You've got to be a little careful getting that close to a foundation, with maybe cracking the foundation. But it's the only vibration is when they're down in bedrock, and these are about 350 feet, so they're quite safe. And I think you're going to see a lot more of these with the new energy code, especially next year, when they drop the HERS ratings on these houses. So that's about it. We did have a couple wells on there that I noticed were a little close to other people's lot lines, so we changed those well locations so I would get out of the notification. So the only lot lines we're close to is either the town or myself, inside the development. So I think that's it.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions?
So the geothermal, what you're referring to is is this the types of system that the down below the earth is a certain BTU temperature, and it extracts that to heat or cool the house? So whatever the mechanicals have to work very, very not quite as high. I might have to bring it up a degree or bring it down a degree. Is that the type of system you're talking about?
Yeah, it's almost like a reverse refrigerator, I've been told. Whether you're heating season or cooling season, the fluid comes back up and it's about 55 degrees in Massachusetts. So it can take that 55 and it compresses it and creates either heat or cooling, depending, on what mode you're in. And they're incredibly efficient. So they can be a little expensive if you're not careful, but they're great systems, very quiet.
And I guess, Mark, in your research, you don't have any concerns.
I do not. I prefer the closed loop over the open loop because I happen to be reading about this over the last 6 or 8 months, and everything I see turns to the closed loop is a little better and a little safer than the open loop, because it's not discharging and then uptaking, and you don't want to change the temperature of the aquifer and potentially draw down something from the system and put it in the aquifer where it's already been cleaned by going through the soil and whatnot. So I seem to, from everything I've read, I really think that the closed loop is the way to go. So I don't have any issues.
And the only other question I would have, do we have any other like this in town? No experience with this at all?
We do have, I think, 2 or 3 on residential dwellings in their yards, and they were able to meet the setbacks because they had bigger lots, like 50,000 square foot lots. And it was never an issue before because of the size of the lots. That's really what the lots are constraining, and the availability of space to be, I think it's 25 feet off the sideline offset, and that's all because when that was thought of is the drawdown from an actual well causes a cone of influence, and you don't want to have two wells next to each other. This one draws down and then this one chases it, and then all of a sudden one well goes dry because it's not as deep as the other one. That guy brings the well driller out and he goes deeper. So you want to have them further apart. With this, it's just taking the heat and the cooling exchange out of the ground and actually drawing down into the aquifer, you know? So if that makes sense.
No, it does. It actually does make sense. I took a little time to look at the closed loop and the open loop this afternoon before the meeting. And no concerns, Mark, with you regarding the setbacks and everything that we're talking here?
No, I think it's the smart way to do it beforehand. That way you're not bringing in rigging, you know, large rigging to next to a freshly poured foundation, you know.
I'll do that. Yep. All right, thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Any other questions? Are we ready to make a motion? I will make the motion to approve the variance from private well regulation chapter 369-4F, minimum lateral distance requirements for geothermal wells.
Me and
All those in favor, Zias, yes.
Mills, yes.
me and yes.
Excellent. All right, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good night, Rick. Thank you.
You too.
Okay, and it looks like next on the agenda, we have a series of betterment applications in the same complex for 579 Washington Street's units 1 and 2, 1, 2, 3, and then 581 Washington Street, units 1, 2, and 3.
Yes, so this is a betterment loan being sought after by a condo complex. It's the first time a condo is going to be wanting to use the betterment loan to tie into sewer. So there's 3 units at each address. There's 6 separate applications. Each of them are seeking $15,000 as a place card holder to tie into sewer and to abandon their septic. Hopefully it comes in less to ultimately take out the loan for invoices submitted, but it's going to be divided evenly amongst the 6.
Excellent. Does this need a motion?
Yes.
Yeah, to approve the betterment loans unless, and if anybody has any questions. There's certain criteria that, you know, Paul, just for your, bringing you up to speed, there's certain criteria that have to be met to be eligible for the betterment loans. The system has to be in failure. They have to be current in all of their town bills. There is no credit check or anything like that that goes along with it, but they've met all the criteria. Actually, 4 of the units, Tim, are owned by the same individual.
Correct, yes.
Because of their form of ownership as condos, they will each have their own loan.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor, Zias, yes.
Mills, yes.
Me and yes.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
And then next on the agenda, we have meeting format.
Yes, so you all received an update from me. We were not, I guess, quick enough in getting the information out to the engineers and some of the other participants that we have in the meeting. And they had sent out a butter notification to do this meeting via Zoom. We've already, now that we know about that, we've already discussed internally that going forward, we're going to send information out after tonight that anybody applying, that it would be a in-person meeting. If you all choose to follow the example that's been set so far by the select board. So what the select board has done is they have allowed remote participation by members. They have not allowed public participation from remotely. And they think that there may have been one instance where they allowed the engineer to present remotely because they had some type of conflict and weren't able to be in person. But we want to get that message out tomorrow to the engineers that this is how it will be going forward, so that any notifications they do all the people that they're notifying that the meeting is in person. We have the ability easily, using a laptop, to just basically set one of you up or two of you up as figureheads on a computer screen if we needed to do for you to participate or for us to participate. But otherwise, everybody else would be in person.
And that will be effective as of July.
Yeah, we'll make sure we get the notice out. The problem with this is, so with George's request, abutters needed to be notified, and they need to be notified 10 days prior to the meeting. They have to have received the green card 10 days prior to the meeting. So very efficiently, he got his notice out, but the notice said, check the agenda that it's a Zoom format. So we had to honor that since it had already gone out, rather than having them have the additional expense and whatnot. We will correct that messaging and make sure that everybody that we typically deal with, and that it's clearly displayed on our licensing platform as well as our website going forward, that public participation is in person.
Wonderful, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any staff notes?
As you saw from your emails, this was actually a very busy week with kind of those odd things for us to be dealing with. We do have, I'm sure I sent you guys the links, that we have information up on Compass. Staff over at Frothingham is answering and helping anybody that they can with that. From what we're being told, even from the user perspective, it is moving, and it's moving in the right direction. As much as it's kind of a tragedy to everybody around here, it does seem to be kind of shaking out, and I think it's going to be okay. The air quality, thankfully, has improved. The only other piece we have is, I know we had talked at the last meeting about our looking at the different regulations and how we'd be moving forward with those. In the interest of getting the most bang for our buck with public participation, if we're going to be holding a public hearing to get input on the first regulations that we're proposing that we update, which are the well regulations, we internally are thinking that public hearing should probably be September, meaning that we put it back for your review on the August meeting. That will also give Mark some time to possibly shake out and see if the state has given us model regs to build the ones we were just talking about, that are the geothermal and aren't really pulling water from the aquifer, are actually just capturing its inherent property of being 55 degrees. So that's the only other thing I had. Mark, Tim, does either of you have anything? We're busy. Pool inspections are almost all done right now for our semi-public pools. We are in the middle of camp inspections, which are quite detailed and do take up quite a bit of our time, but are, very much worth it. So we're in the middle of all of that.
Busy summer. Any member notes?
I got nothing.
Oh, nothing, thank you.
Paul, you did receive a copy of the well regulations, correct?
I did, thank you.
Okay.
Trying to educate myself on it, Mike.
All right, great. I just wanted to
I may
confirm.
reach out for you.
Okay, sounds great.
Thank you. Timmy's been very quiet, so we're not gonna call him.
Any questions from attendees? Doesn't look like there are any.
Nothing in the Q&A.
All right, then I will make a motion to adjourn the Board of Health meeting at 5:29 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor, Zayas, yes.
Mills, yes.
Me and yes.
Excellent.
Have a
Thank
great
you so
night.
much.
All right.
Have a great night.
Bye.
Bye.